of this country. In the same vein, we call upon the political actors and the government of Kenya to ensure that the 2/3 gender rule is observed to the letter and spirit. Ladies and gentlemen, over and above all that I've mentioned, the East African Community Election Observation Mission would like to appeal to all political actors and stakeholders in Kenya, including the great people of Kenya, to continue to maintain peace after the results of the elections are declared. We implore all of you to embrace peaceful resolution of disputes that may arise from the electoral processes. Fortunately, there is the opportunity to use the courts of law, so please make use of that avenue. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, the East African Community Election Observation Mission is satisfied that the way the 2022 general election, Kenyan general election, was conducted on polling day, the people of Kenya were given the opportunity to elect leaders of their choice freely. We hope the subsequent processes will respect, uphold, and reflect the will of the people of Kenya in the 2022 general elections. I thank you. On development.
Kundi tu la waangalizi ambao wamekuja hapa nchini Kenya kuweza kufuatilia uchaguzi wetu unavyoendelea, tangu tulipoanza kujitayarisha, jinsi tunavyoendelea kujitayarisha, na vile vile hata hivi sasa tunapoendelea kusubiri matokeo. Tumewaona pale ndani kwenye ukumbi, na mtazamaji tunamwona bado amewasili, wanaendelea kuchukua maswali kutoka kwa wanahabari. Turejee pale.
Distinguished former presidents, Excellencies, ambassadors, distinguished members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Chairman, I will hereby present the preliminary statement of the IGAD Election Observation Mission to the 9 August 2022 general elections in Kenya. At the invitation of the IEBC of the Republic of Kenya, the Executive Secretary of IGAD, His Excellency Dr. Gabayo, authorized the deployment of an IGAD election observation mission to observe the general election in the Republic of Kenya. I led a 31-person mission. The mission is comprised of 7 core team members and 24 short-term observers drawn from 6 IGAD member states: Djibouti, Ethiopia, Somalia, South Sudan, Sudan, and Uganda. The 24 STOs, or short-term observation members, out of which 11 are women, represent election management bodies as well as public and diplomatic services. The STOs were deployed to 19 constituencies across 10 counties: Nairobi, Nakuru, Nyeri, Uasin Gishu, Kajiado, Kisumu, Kisii, Kakamega, Machakos, and Mombasa. Since my arrival in Kenya on 2 August 2022, I held wide-ranging engagement with national stakeholders and senior officials, including the Cabinet Secretary of Foreign Affairs, Chairperson of the Commission of the IEBC, the two front-runner presidential candidates, domestic observer group representatives, as well as heads of other regional, continental, and international election observation missions. Ladies and gentlemen, in all my engagements, I underlined IGAD's keen interest to see the will of the Kenyan people fully realized through a credible and peaceful election processes. I also underscored the positive implications of the peaceful transfer of power in Kenya for the wider stability and domestic transition across the IGAD region. So it is not only for Kenya, but beyond, to the region itself. There were regular consultations and unity of voices among the various African missions, namely the African Union, COMESA, EAC, and IGAD. I would like to state my satisfaction with the level of collaboration and express my hope that this commendable practice will be sustained in future missions. IGAD election observation missions assessment of the 2022 general election in Kenya is based on the principles and standards of the conduct of domestic elections as enshrined in relevant regional and continental instruments. Given that the IGAD election observation mission is a short-term mission, the scope of this mandate is mainly limited to observing election day activities pertaining to polling, counting, and tallying procedures. The observers have undergone a 2-day orientation program on the political context of election relevant to national and international legal frameworks guiding election administration, as well as IGAD guidelines and code of conduct for election observers. They were also equipped with election observation checklists to gather and transmit their findings to the mission's secretariat. The mission is grateful for the warm welcome and cooperation it received from all Kenyan institutions and citizens, including election officials, candidates, and domestic observer groups. Ladies and gentlemen, Excellencies, I want to start with general remarks. Based on the information obtained from the IEBC, we noted that there were 22,120,458 registered voters and 16,098 candidates in the 9 August 2022 general elections. They are vying for a total of 1,822 seats for 6 categories of elective positions. These elective positions are presidential, members of the National Assembly, women representatives in the National Assembly, members of the Senate, governors and members of the county assemblies. The 2022 general election is widely considered as significant as it entails the transfer of presidential power. This, coupled with legacy of past electoral processes, adds to its importance. This is evident through the relatively high number of national and international election observation missions. We have taken note of key legal frameworks governing elections in Kenya, including the 2010 Constitution, and IGAD-EOM has attended several briefings sessions organized by the IEBC and was able to appreciate the Commission's level of preparedness. Excellencies, let me proceed to the specific observation we found now. Regarding pre-election observation, IGAD short-term election observation covered 213 polling stations across 19 constituencies located in the 10 counties where the IGAD observer mission was deployed. On 8 August, the day before the election, or at the eve of the general election, our short-term observers had all reached the various deployment locations, identified polling stations, and engaged with polling officials and other stakeholders in order to ascertain the level of preparedness. A more notable disruption recorded concerning preparations on 8 August was the IEBC's announcement of 2 gubernatorial elections in Mombasa and Kakamega due to the errors of ballots. The statement by the IEBC on the cancellation caused anxiety and uncertainty pertaining to electoral processes in these 2 counties. Regarding election day observations, most of the polling stations where IGAD SCOs were able to observe opening procedures across the 10 counties opened on time. Secrecy of the ballot was adhered to in most polling stations observed by the IGAD SCOs. However, there were some instances when the positioning of the booth could have compromised the secrecy of the ballot and the electors. Regarding voter turnout, in most of the polling stations visited, voter turnout was noticeably low and recorded at around 55%. On polling stations and election day materials, the IGAD Election Observation Mission notes that in all polling stations visited, requisite polling materials were available throughout the day. In some polling stations, the observers noted that limited number of polling booths slowed down the voting processes and procedures. All polling stations were, with few exceptions, observed were accessible to all voters, including persons with disabilities, and special consideration was also given to the elderly, lactating mothers, and pregnant women. On the polling staff, independent observers, and party agents. The short-term observation missions of IGAD observed that in most polling stations visited. Polling officials performed their duties diligently in accordance with the laws and electoral regulations of Kenya. There was also a commendable level of representation of women as IEBC officials in most polling stations visited. Most of these are within the youth category, which signifies youth participation in election management. The representation of women among party agents and domestic observers was significantly high and noticeable, and that is very much commendable. The IGAD EOM observers noted the presence of domestic and international observers in most polling stations visited. On security around polling stations, the presence of security officials around the polling stations provided a secure environment for the elections to be conducted in an orderly and peaceful manner. The women security officers were also visibly present in all polling stations visited. There were no causes of harassment and intimidation observed. On closing of the poll, the IGAD Election Observation Mission observed that IEBC officials complied with the closing procedures adequately. Most of the polling stations observed closed on time. However, in few polling stations, closing time were extended to allow voters in the queue to cast their votes. In polling stations where IGAD Election Observation Mission observed closing, they also observed the counting procedures and processes in a very peaceful manner. In conclusion, the IGAD Election Observation Mission was deployed as a short-term mission, which is focused largely around the conduct of the electoral process on the election day. We note that we released the preliminary report. IEBC is yet to announce official results. The IGAD Election Observation Mission commends the Kenyan people for the... We released the preliminary report. IEBC is yet to announce official results.
Bila shaka mtazamaji, huyo ni aliye